Hi folks, Martin Lehner here from Orange Technology, and in this video I'd like to talk about maintenance and not being a firefighter. Do not be a firefighter, at least when it comes to IT. This is something I've ran into quite a bit with clients. Probably, like, not joking, probably 90% of the clients that I've seen have this issue. Most of them have existing infrastructure. Usually it's a server and workstations. And what I see is none of the other IT service providers do any kind of maintenance. It's just something they don't do. Now, I'll scroll back here a little bit. We live in a time where technology is fundamentally changing everything we do. How we interact with people, how we do our work, everything. Even as little as 5 years ago, your phone on your desk was most likely, black or cream colored. It was probably a Meridian or a Nortel phone. And your phone was just an analog basic phone. You either had an on-premise phone system, which was most likely a Nortel box, or you were renting space off the phone system from your landline phone provider, or it's just a basic phone line. You picked up the phone, you made a phone call, and that was it. Your phone was analog. It had a couple features, a few things you could do, and that was it. It just worked. These days, the majority of on-premise phone systems that are being sold are IP based. So this is something that we do as a service provider. We sell IP phone systems. So you have, an IP phone switch, and then you have IP phones on your desk. And those IP phones communicate back with the switch over Ethernet. So they actually plug into the same sort of jack, same switch that your computers are plugging into. So based on that, there are things in there. There's software. There's software in the switch. There's software in the phones. It's called firmware. And something I've noticed, and firmware is in everything. Firmware is in firewalls. Firmware is in routers. Firmware can be in switches. Firmware is in IP phones, IP phone systems. Software is obviously on the server. You've got your Windows Server software. Your desktop has software. Your operating system, which may be a Windows operating system or whatever. And all of these things have software or firmware now. Even your phone on your desk, something you would never think about. In your home at home, your fridge has firmware. Your stove has firmware these days. There's a trend now to move towards smart fridges, internet-enabled fridges, where you can, see, how cold is my fridge by logging onto a website. Right? That requires software within the fridge to interface with the internet and, whatever service you've got and whatever you're doing. So based on that, software evolves, right? So, imagine you had Windows XP and you never had a single update. That would be an interesting experience. But yeah, software evolves. So software needs updating. Firmware needs updating. Bugs are fixed. New features are enabled. Things like that. So what I found is, when a lot of IT providers, at least in my experience, when they deploy a solution like a server or even a phone system, I've seen phone systems, they just deploy that system and that's it. They just leave it running. Right? I'll give you one example. We took over a client probably about 6-7 months ago from another IT service provider. The client phoned us and asked if we would be interested in providing them the service. So we went and we did an assessment, which we do for all of our clients. And we had a look at all of the infrastructure, everything that was there. And one of the things we noticed was they had one server. This is about a 15 workstation environment, roughly. So they had a server, and it was running Windows Small small business server, 2011, which was a great product, by the way. It still is a great product. And we had a look at it, and since it had been installed, so this had been on premise for somewhere between 3 and 4 years. Okay, 3 and 4 years this thing was running in a production environment, and it didn't have a single update installed. like not a single update. There were several gigs worth of updates that we had to download first before they could be installed. I think the entire process actually involved multiple restarts too, because when you have those many, there's some updates that have to be done first, then the machine's got to be restarted, then you can do the next set of updates, and it's got to be restarted, and so forth. So I think it was 3, 4, 5 restarts. I don't remember exactly, but it was quite a few, and it took several hours. We actually did it on a Sunday when no one was there. And between downloading the updates, installing them, restarting, having them get installed when the OS started back up, I mean, the network, that server, not the network, the server was down for quite a few hours actually. Now, luckily, the business wasn't operating on Sundays. We got it done, we got it back up and running. It was fine on Monday morning when everybody arrived to work. But the point is, some of the things that they were experiencing, issues they were seeing, problems with their workstations, what they thought was, just overall, problems with, this doesn't work properly, this is a quirk or whatever. Most of those issues were actually addressed with these updates. That's why updates are brought out. I'm personally not a fan of setting up updates to install automatically. I prefer to be notified, and then I can choose a maintenance window when I do it. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter whether you set it up automatically, whether you do it manually yourself. You have to make sure it's being done, and you have to make sure you have maintenance windows. For example, for most of our clients, we have a monthly maintenance window. So I'll send out an email about a week before. It'll usually be on a Saturday or Sunday, because most of our clients are closed on the weekends. Usually we do it on a Sunday in the evening. So I'll send out a notice saying, hey, there's going to be a maintenance window of 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever it is. During this time, please understand that the network may be unavailable. If you have an issue, please let us know. And most times it's fine because people are at home. It's a Sunday night or whatever. So we do our maintenance windows then. We do updates, and we do firmware updates, and sometimes there's a new version of the operating system for the firewall, and things like that. Your desktop phones, they'll get updates. In the IP world, anybody who's worked with IP phones they'll appreciate this. Echo on your phone. You speak into the phone, you hear yourself within your own earpiece. That can be a serious issue with IP phones. So echo cancellation is something that all of the IP phone system providers are constantly working on and improving. So again, updating your firmware within your phones, updating the software within the systems, that can help with that. That can help with that a lot. There was one time we deployed an on-premise IP phone system, and there was some really bad echo, and it actually, part of the issue was the impedance, the ohms, the impedance on the analog lines was way out of spec. And again, those of you that have been watching me, I live up here in the Yukon. Things are a little bit different than down south. We only have one provider for internet, one provider for landline phone. We just recently got one provider for VoIP that's brand new, that has access to local numbers. So some of the infrastructure we have up here is a little bit out of date, especially on like the analog side. So in this particular circumstance, we had a client who had analog phone lines that the impedance was quite out of spec between all the lines. They weren't just all the same. Each line, they had 4 lines that was coming into their system, and each one was like way out of spec to the other. So we actually had to contact the IP phone system manufacturer, and they actually created us a custom edit to their latest firmware for the phones that had basically an enhanced version of echo cancellation in it, and that solved the issue. But again, without that firmware update, they were going to have echo problems, like bad echo problems. I actually tried it myself, and I went, like, it's hard to have a conversation with someone because you're hearing the echo. The other end doesn't hear it, but you hear it. So it's the conversation's strange for you. So yeah, that's the biggest thing, and I've seen so often that maintenance windows just they're not there. People don't think about them as important. Um, it's just something that people don't rely on, don't use, and they just become a firefighter, right? So somebody calls, says, "Hey, this isn't working." So they go there, they fix that issue, or they try and fix that issue, and then they leave, and that's it. And there's no follow up. And a lot of times, a lot of these issues can be solved simply by doing a software update or a firmware update. Install the updates on your server, reboot your server, right? I mean, there's things you should be doing as part of regular maintenance. And looking on the business side of this, you get paid for that. If you have a maintenance window and you let your clients know, I'm doing maintenance, this month, this is the monthly maintenance window, it's 3 hours on the last Sunday of every month, you get paid for that. Those are hours you can bill them. So you're making money. There's no reason not to do a maintenance window. In addition to that, I would argue, and in my experience, network reliability goes up when you have a regular maintenance window. When you do your updates and you reboot your server and they all install fine and you're making sure everything's running, you have less downtime. And clients like that. Clients just want things to work. They don't care how they work. They don't care if you're doing a maintenance window. They don't care if you're up at midnight. They really don't care. They just want everything to work when they want it to work. When they come in Monday morning, they expect everything to be running. And if you're doing regular maintenance windows and you're doing all your patches and everything is, working good, they will be happy. And you get paid. So as a business owner, there's no reason not to do maintenance or have maintenance windows. So again, don't be a firefighter.